In the beginning, Bob created the library and the stack. And Bob saw that the stack was empty, so he created the creatures and the lands. And he saw that the creatures were good and the lands were dual. And he divided the creatures and the lands into 5, one for the mountains high, one for the oceans deep, one for the forests dense, one for the meadows wide, and one for the swamplands dark. The Genesis of Legacy, the Book of Bob, Chapter 1, verses 1 to 3.
Double, I was like, dude, this looks so much better than my painting. But that was so awesome what you did.
Yeah, because you also have one from like a few years back, right?
Yes, from 2015, 10 years ago.
Well, see that I know because it's your profile. Like it used to be your profile picture, I think, for like many years, I think. Yeah,
I mean, you're pretty much, at least back then, right? It was recognized as the official Legacy World Championship, kinda, right?
Yeah.
That was before they split it into the 3 Eternal Weekends we have now. So.
And then you have to win all 3 parts to become the unofficial, or what's it called, like the unified world champion. I guess that's what they call it. That's what HJ Kaiser tried to do for a while.
That's so funny. Close. Yeah, because I think that 2015 might have been the last year that they did only have 1. I think 2016 might have been the first year that there were 3. So I'm technically the last official world champion, if you want to look at it that way.
Dude. Oh yeah, it's about time we get a world champion on the cast. And with that, hello and welcome to Everyday Channel number 187, your favorite, most deceptively named bi-weekly Legacy podcast. This time we traded Callum for a world champion, Bob Huang, once host of the podcast. I think, Bob, it's been a couple of years since you've been on the cast. I think we basically joined right around the same time, back in 2013, right?
Mm-hmm, that sounds right.
Sounds about right? And we figured, hey, if this is some serious talk about bannings and how the format is going to shape up, let's we actually didn't tell Callum. Callum is running around in Newcastle trying to figure things out, and we were just like, no, let's get Bob in here, and maybe Callum is going to be surprised. No, seriously.
Well, you said we changed it to Bob. I would say we upgraded Callum to Bob. It's good to be here with you guys. Yeah, really cool.
I wouldn't go that far, but excited to talk about Legacy, talk about bands,
dude,
talk about whatever we want to talk about today.
This feels so old school to me, because to hear your voices, on this podcast. Oh man, this is gonna be like a boomer episode. It sounds like a boomer episode. The topic is kind of new stuff.
It's the kind of episode that you want to listen to while you're part of it, and you just you catch yourself always being like, oh, what is he gonna say next? Oh, I'm supposed to say something now.
Dude, that's I used to listen to your voices for so many years. I was one of your fanboys. Back.
What about Wars? One of your fanboys?
Oh,
are you not a fanboy anymore? You got super excited when I told you that Bob was gonna come on.
I'm still a fanboy of this cast. Kind of, but
that's of the cast.
But but especially, dude, I think because 2014, 15 is when I moved to Tokyo, Japan, and I needed English content, English input about Legacy, and you guys were the number one resource for that. So.
Oh, thank you so much, dude.
Cool.
So for those who don't know, Bob Huang has been around the format for an eternity. He sometimes is credited as the inventor of Legacy, and I guess that's true. I'm not very sure.
It's been a while since I've heard that.
Every time you're on the same cast with me, I guess I'm going to bring that one up. But Bob has been around. I think, Bob, you've got tons of accolades, right? I remember you top 16 the GP in New Jersey, I want to say, right? There was Treasure Cruise something.
Yes, back in, I would call those were my prime days. Right now, I'm definitely over the hill. I'm a Legacy boomer.
You're washed.
I'm definitely more on the wash side of things, where I'm looking to you guys to tell me what's good now.
Oh, is that how it works? But you mentioned you still keep up with the format, right? You still play every once in a while and try. I remember because you used to run that one of those stat sheets. Like you collected all of the data that was around, and then every time we had you on the cast, you released like all the data. You were like, okay, according to my sheet. Do you still like track and use that sheet?
You know what's funny is I would still say I'm a legacy player. I probably play, most months. Occasionally I go on like a little bit of a break, but I still play a decent amount. And the funny thing that you mentioned about the stat sheet is I still do all of that because I enjoy that aspect of it, even if I'm not playing all the time.
Love that. For how long has that been going on? Like a couple of years now, at least.
Oh my God. Okay, so I mean, this Excel file, I have it open with me right now. I mean, I think I started it pretty much, probably in 2014 or 2015, something like that.
Dude, 10 years. That's
yeah,
insane.
there's so many hidden tabs on this spreadsheet. It probably has like 100 tabs, and a lot of it's like old decks that like I built at one point and stuff like that. Yeah.
You at some point we're gonna put it up like in a museum, like antiquities or something. It's like, oh, this is what they used to keep track of the format, and now we have AI to figure out that the best deck is like whatever Ravenous Ballad. Who would have thought that? What can you do? Cool. Yeah. So we got you on the show tonight because there's the banned and restricted announcement that was, well, I can't even say long awaited, because I feel like every banned and restricted announcement these days there's something from Legacy getting nuked, or at least people expecting something from Legacy to get nuked. But before we get into that, very quickly, Kai, you've been traveling around northern Germany once again, and you hit up one of the biggest tournaments of the year in our country that I wasn't even aware of, which is like, I feel like that's a good sign, right? When we have these random big tournaments of Legacy in Germany that not even everybody is aware of, so potentially it could be even bigger.
Yeah, like that one was in Hamburg, like the really north part of Germany. It was called like Buden Brawl by Magic Buden, and had like 150 plus players on the Saturday. And I think they even had a Sunday event. I wasn't there for the Sunday event, I was only there for Saturday. But yeah, they had like a modern main event and like an ELM Legacy qualifier. And I think the Legacy qualifier alone had like around 100 players or so, with like 7 rounds of Swiss and top 8. And boy, I was skeptical because of the tournament, just taking place a few days before like ban announcements or unban announcements. But man, dude, players are they're so hooked on, on the format in general. Like, they just don't care. Like, I talked to a couple of them, and they basically said, yeah, I mean, they're just gonna adapt, but they're not gonna let the format down just because there's like a ban announcement coming up.
I mean, they already have the decks anyway, right? It's not gonna be
they have the decks, and I also heard a couple of people who said like, yeah, this is probably like the last time I play like Dimir Reanimator, kind of as a half joke, and like I wasn't even sure like what to expect this time because I had like really low expectations.
Did you play, or were you just like part of the experience? So
I was there with my Savatarix booth, and I had a couple of people who challenged me between the rounds, and I hung out with like most of the players, and I had a really good time. Shout outs to really like all the communities, like from Hannover and from Lübeck and from Hamburg itself, and yeah, like north part of Germany is really where Legacy is at. Holy shit. Yeah,
I want to say it used to be very much a lot of Legacy in the south that you would hear about, and then in the west. But I feel like, as you mentioned, like a lot of these northern communities, they have grown so much over the last 5+ years or something.
Yeah,
maybe it's also just like that we are more connected these days, and we know more. Like, I used to know more about like Italian Legacy than North German Legacy, and I guess that's still true culturally for most things, just because like Northern Germany is so different from South down here. But how does it work? Like, do people request you to come with your booth, or did you like offer it?
It depends. It depends from event to event. But like this time, they asked me to come over, and they covered like my travel fees and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, and I was really happy to be there because I wanted to go to Hamburg anyways, and connecting with people in like physical events is just like you need this like once per month maybe, or like once every 2 months or so to kind of stay hooked on the format, I think.
And also putting your brand out there, right?
Yeah, I mean that too. But like, if you only play Magic online, that can really like, I don't know, just makes you kind of feel a little frustrated maybe about the format, or like you really try to only care about wins and stuff and not enough about the community and so on. And I live in Berlin, where it's like like this bubble where like no one can enter Berlin and no one can get out. It's like kind of like this UFO
alien
planet kind of thing.
Right? It's like a some alien spaceship landed in the middle of nowhere in northeastern Germany, which is like all swampland, right? And then they were like, let's drop the city of like close to 4 million now.
I know. Because like Berlin also did an EM qualifier once and it failed, I think. Like it was not very successful because like people have a really hard time getting to the capital of this country.
I did not know that about Berlin. Do you play Legacy on like at a local store in Berlin?
Yeah. So there are a couple of local stores and there's a community here, and the problem with Berlin is that it's like surrounded by like miles and miles of wasteland.
Yeah, it's literally wasteland. It's just...
And it's so hard to access from like outside. So you're basically like trapped in this capital city.
Basically, there's like not a lot of like suburbs or mid-sized towns or anything. It's just like there's Potsdam, and there's pretty much emptiness for 100 kilometers or something.
Like imagine if like New York was like in the middle of, I don't know, like Nevada. Maybe?
Yeah, something like even worse. Like it's somewhere like North Dakota or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wait, Julian, are you still in Munich then?
Yeah. I don't know if I told you, I switched jobs 1.5 years ago. It was one of the best decisions of my life. I'm selling basically kitesurfing, diving, any kind of water sports now. And the coolest thing is like my boss sends me around. Like just actually on Friday, he told me, dude, you gotta continue your kitesurfing journey. And he told me, hey, you can go to Egypt, you can go to Morocco, you can go to Sicily, Greece, wherever you want to go. Just like keep kitesurfing, and the hotel is free, and you're gonna make the flight work and everything. It's just like, it's amazing. It's really amazing. I also like started working out a lot, like something like 6 months ago. Just like everything is great about switching jobs. So
nice,
super happy about that. Yeah, very much loving it. And we already talked about you, Bob. You are still around the DC area, right?
Yep. I've been here for about 10 years now, and love the community, love the area.
Awesome. I think I've only been to DC once. That was 2014.
Oh yeah, you came for, I think, if I recall correctly, this is what I remember is, we both went to GP New Jersey, and then that's the one that I top 16 that you mentioned. And then we played at an SEG, and I basically played the same deck I played in New Jersey, which was Jeskai Stoneblade with 4 bolts, 4 plows. And then you were playing elves at SCG DC, but then you still beat me, even though I thought it was a pretty good matchup for me. You definitely proved me wrong. I distinctly remember that.
Yeah, I think we played in not the last round, but one of the last rounds, kinda, right? Or was it the last round? I don't remember.
Something like that.
I still remember what you said when I won. On the turn I won, you looked at your cards, then you looked up at me, and you said, that was not supposed to happen this way. And I was like, that felt so good.
Well.
Yeah. But everything I remember about DC was going to a Washington Wizards game. And
oh, nice. I love going to Wizards games because the team is so bad that the tickets are amazingly cheap. You can literally get tickets for under $10 sometimes.
I think that's how it kind of worked out. Like one of our local friends, he was actually a Czech guy who was trying to get American citizenship. And I think he got us the tickets, and we sent 2 guys. One of them was Philip Schöniger, and David. We sent them off because they didn't want to go to the game, so we sent them to Hooters. And Philip didn't know what Hooters was, and I was like, "Oh, quite the experience, apparently."
That's amazing.
I might have mentioned this before. Anyway, so guys, why did we come together today? I'm really so happy, dude, for Bob to come on tonight. We want to talk about the March 31st banned and restricted announcement. They did a lot of things for Modern, especially for Pauper, but for Legacy, most importantly, they banned 2 cards. Sawing Microspawn and Troll of Khazad-dûm. First of all, guys, did you expect this? Were you surprised, or did you expect more, less, or is it roughly what you thought might happen?
So I was quite happy. I was on my phone 5 minutes before 5. It was 5 p.m. I think in Germany, and I kept updating the site because I was. The community asked for a lot of bans and unbans this time, and I'm personally not the biggest fan of bans and unbans in general. But I kind of knew that something's gonna happen, And like when I refreshed and saw that Zone Michaels won and Troll of Khazad-dûm got banned, like I was really happy. Not to say that like there could have been more, of course, but I think both are actually pretty decent hits, I think. Mm-hmm. And there's like a lot of stuff like going on Twitter about, you know, like how Troll of Khazad-dûm was not the right card to ban, and like, you know, it should have been like Entomb or something else, you know. But I feel like every time I play against this Dimir Reanimator deck, I feel like every time they cycle Troll of Khazad-dûm on their end step, I feel like they're cheating. Because it's so free and easy, you know?
It's like an Entomb that also draws a land.
Right, and you know what's even worse is like if you petty theft the Troll of Khazad-dûm, because then it's in the hand and then they get to cycle it again. Like it's like, look, I'm not winning this, you know? I cannot win this. And yeah, so like, you know, if they wanna Entomb Reanimate Atraxa, well, at least they used a couple of cards, you know, and it's a little like less consistent. But like Troll of Khazad-dûm, yeah, dude, like Troll of Khazad-dûm literally made them like they can keep a hand with like one land, which is like a wasteland, for example, and that's a keep, you know. And that, in my opinion, was like really broke that deck because it made it so consistent and.
So you were pretty much looking forward to Troll getting banned, and you mentioned you might even want to have more bans in the near future. Actually, I have no idea when the next ban is going to come up. I haven't really kept up with.
Dude, I think it's going to be like in June or so, like
something like
in a
that.
couple of months. Yeah.
Okay.
And obviously, everyone is like tired of Entomb, right? I get it. I get it. I'm also very tired of Entomb. Like, if anyone goes like fetch a Delta, fetch Underground Sea, end of turn, Entomb, I feel like, okay, well, I guess I'm dead now. But like Troll of Khazad-dûm is like way too easy, and I think it's like a 6/5 that says unblockable is such a big threat, man. Like combat, like Legacy is not the format for combat specialists. It has never been, I think.
Whoa, it has never been. I don't know about that. Anyway.
Like, when was the last time when you double blocked an attacker?
Well, I guess okay.
Right, like it never happens. It rarely, like, I think the only matchup where it actually happens is like a Death and Texas Mirror. But like, I don't know, like, yeah, just having creatures in Legacy that commonly, like, where you can literally turn your brain off and attack because it's not gonna get blocked anyway.
I did not expect you to hate that card so much.
You know, yeah, and that's
I had no idea.
Right,
I had no idea.
That's coming out of someone like me who's a Doomsday player. Like, I do not care about the unblockable thing, but every time I see, like, you know, I don't know, like tempo mirrors or like reanimator mirrors, like in actual tournaments and events, then I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, dude, like, is this really like how combat's supposed to be? I don't know.
I agree with you, Kai. I have a lot of conflicting feelings because I definitely played a lot of Blue-Black Reanimator myself. And when I played it, the deck felt good, but not too powerful. And I think this ban announcement is, even though it's, it's banning two cards that were pretty unpopular, I actually think this is like maybe a huge shift in their ban philosophy. And I think it could be the way things go forward, which is like, I think a very, very huge deal. Like, I don't want to understate this because this ban was mostly driven by community feedback, and it was not driven necessarily by a deck winning, 55% or more in the data. Like, usually that's a statistic that they cite, but this ban was mostly based on community sentiment. They mentioned tournament attendance being down, and I had noticed something similar. But I wasn't 100% sure because I don't have the data, but presumably they have more data, at least for Magic Online, and they were seeing similar trends. So I thought that was super interesting that they went out and said that. But, for me, like, I'm glad that they got rid of these two cards. I think the frustration, like, everybody's been complaining about bans, probably louder than before. And I think the ultimate frustration, if I have to boil it down to one thing, it's people don't like non-games of Magic. These two decks and the recent printings have created more non-games of Magic because they're just, so many hands that your opponents have that you just can't beat. And that was the part that I think was really frustrating to a lot of Legacy players. Yeah. But on the flip side, I like what you mentioned about, like, playing in real life. People were really happy and excited to be there. So sometimes I wonder if, we're in a content creator echo chamber, like everybody's talking about how miserable it is to play the format. And these are probably people who play the format more than anybody else because they're, making content, grinding moto leagues. But at the same time, like maybe the format, is really annoying for them, but for the broader picture, it's like, it's not so bad. So I do want to check myself. I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Like I can definitely agree on the non-magic part, right? Like it's supposed to be a format or like a game where interaction is key, and like there's you should have spells or answers to almost any situation, right? Like in the format, right? And that's been like for most players, I think like the reason why you want to play Legacy and not a different format, because you have answers like Force of Vigor, Force of Will, and Wastelands, and like you can kind of answer everything. So like I think the first time I got really upset with a Magic card in general was like True Name Nemesis in 2013, because that card kind of broke like my thinking of, okay, there's always something I can do about a certain card, right? And there is like what's it called, a council's judgment or whatever that shit card is called.
Wrath of God, that shit.
Wrath of God and Supreme Verdict. But like, yeah, I was just so upset that like, how can they ever print a card that's so difficult and tedious to interact with? And and of course you can Swords of Plowshares, a Troll of Khazad-dûm, right? Like, that's probably the easiest and cleanest answer to it. But like, outside of that, like you cannot, like, it's not a Tarmogoyf where you can like, like maybe double block and then kill it in combat, or I don't know, like most removal spells don't work. Yeah, I don't know. Like it just felt so. It's just so hard to interact with, right? And that, yeah, kind of takes away the philosophy, I think, or like the drive for this format, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, bringing it back to Troll versus Entomb, I think that's also an interesting ban. Because to your point, like the other obvious ban would have been Entomb, but it basically wasn't touched for community sentiment and format reasons. Like it's been, a fine deck to have in the format for a while. I do think letting the Reanimator deck also be a tempo deck is a little bit too far past the line. But if you just look at the two cards objectively speaking, I think most people would agree Entomb is probably more powerful, as well as Entomb, I would say, probably has a higher chance of being problematic in the future. Like you think back to when they banned Survival of the Fittest, a lot of people wanted to keep Survival around, but Wizards made the decision to ban Survival over Vengevine because they decided that Survival, it was the engine card, it would probably make more broken cards in the future. This time they made the opposite decision where they banned Troll instead of Entomb. So I thought that was interesting, and it was, more based around, I think, community sentiment and history of the format rather than like objectively looking at the two cards. I would say Entomb is probably better.
Yeah, it's interesting because they specifically mentioned that Reanimator is what they call a core part of the format. But they also mentioned if it is supposed to be a core part of the format, it must be a more committal synergy. Or actually, what do they call it? I got it here. Yeah, must be a more committal synergy. They can't really do that like middle of the road thing where they're like, oh, I'm a combo deck, but I'm also like a mid-range deck, and I'm kind of like a tempo deck. Like, that's all of these things going on. I can pivot between all of these strategies, and you have to like, it's the classic sideboarding problem, right? If you overcommit to your graveyard hate, then the regular game plan just gets you, and if you don't, then you might just get blown out. So you feel like you need like a critical number of early graveyard interaction, and it's just like, if you guess right, you just play a game, and if you guess wrong, it's immediately over. And that's also like, you guys mentioned they want to reduce non-games. And I feel like Wizards found a very elegant way of saying that. They said there's like a lot of environmental pressure, and that pressure has wildly condensed the games. Meaning, right, there's just like a ton of like non-games or games that are over way too quickly. And I guess it also touches on the whole thing of like mid-range and control not really being a big thing anymore because games end too quickly. And I feel like that's part of it. I want to mention one more thing. You guys, Bob clearly identified, right? This feels like a huge shift in the way they handle the format, as in, well, technically things are kind of balanced, but we get a lot of like player frustration, community feedback, event attendance is down. And I guess there's some part of that is well, the state of the format. I guess another part is, well, Magic as a big picture thing, and also like Magic Online. I don't know if the economy is back up. It felt like the Magic Online economy was quite bad. But what I want to touch on is they also provided that kind of reasoning for Dreadhorde Arcanist, which was banned when they said, well, actually, from our data, it actually looks good, but it turns out everybody hates that card. And I mean, you guys played against Cutthroat Arcanist, right? It would sometimes just like snowball games away.
Many times.
Yeah. So I feel like that's something they do, and I fully support them in doing that kind of stuff, right? I've always supported these like gameplay related bans. I guess the most obnoxious being Cataxian Probe, which is just like terrible gameplay. And I guess this is kind of like on a similar page, like player sentiment in general, gameplay being bad and everything.
But you know, like the community voices and like. That's really for me coming from Japan. That's really like a European American thing, like where people just get very verbal on social media, and like they kind of they keep mentioning like those like miserable play patterns, or like how they not like to play against Naru, for example, and stuff like that. Whereas like every time I'm in Japan with my Japanese legacy friends, like we are certainly not happy, but like instead of complaining, like what the Japanese do is like they kind of try to actually solve the problem. And like I because I saw like lists, with like multiple damping matrix, for example, like against Naru, right? Like for example, like everyone is so used to have like 3-4 reanimator hate cards, ley lines and Grafty Cascages and whatnot. But having 3 or 4 damping spheres, damping matrix in your sideboard is just not very common, because it's not a thing in Legacy. But sometimes the format asks for it, right? And I mean,
that's a very positive spin that you put on it. To me, it feels like if sometimes solving the problem can also just be suffering in silence, and that's your way of. I mean, that's a very stereotypical cultural. Japanese way of solving the problem. I don't know if that's actually like part of it. Like if it gets really bad, would like Japanese communities not also at some point start saying, hey, we need something to change? Because I think I've asked you this before, like who are like the I don't know, who speaks for the Japanese legacy communities? Are there like podcasts? Is there like a website? I don't know, do they like use Reddit forums? I don't know. Like you must tell us. I have no idea.
Like I mean, there are Discord servers and but no podcast. Like Japan is just not a podcast country. Like there are a couple of streams, but not many.
So how does the community like form an opinion? Like where's the public discourse in Japan?
You just physically show up at stores.
Oh, okay,
like,
that's cool.
Right, that's what you do, right? Like and this is like one of the things I like so much about Japan is that you don't even have to ask your friends if they're gonna go to store XYZ. You just show up at a store, and there is a very high chance that there are multiple of your friends already there in the store playing, or waiting for a tournament.
This is like
it's like a player. It's like a player lobby, and yeah.
Sounds like what life was like at the beginning of the internet. Still, I remember like after school we would just go to the lake and hang out, and I knew all of my friends were gonna be at the lake, and we didn't have to like have a WhatsApp group or something. It's just like they were gonna be there.
Yeah, and you the dynamics, right? Like they're so different, like because you show up, and then that your friend is maybe sitting at one of those tables, and he already bought 3 copies of Damping Matrix maybe, and you show up, and he's like, dude, you gotta check this out. I brought these 3 copies of Damping Matrix for my sideboard. I don't know if it's gonna be good, but we're gonna try it out today. That sort of energy, and I like this a lot.
And then Kai walks into the room and everybody's like, oh, I need some Doomsday hate. Okay,
yeah, I mean, that's how you end up having like players who play like Dead Drop in sideboards and other nonsense cards.
I once heard a really good quote about Japan. Japan has been living in the year 2000 ever since 1980. Because these days, in a lot of ways, it's stuck in the past. But in the past, it used to be this futuristic country. And when you tell me it still works that way, it kind of reminds me of that quote.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah.
Like you go to your conveni and you use your fax machine or something to pay a bill. This is like...
Yeah, dude.
I guess at some point it was like super futuristic, and now it just feels like so old school. And that's the appeal.
It is and it isn't. Right.
Yeah. I guess we could have an entire episode about like what life in Japan is like.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, okay, cool. So I guess we're all pretty much on board with Troll of Khazad-dûm, and Entomb the obvious comparison. But I feel like, guys, do you think like Reanimator could survive as a at least tier 2-ish deck in Legacy without Entomb? I'm really not so sure about that.
I think that's possible, but it would definitely be a big question mark. I know some people, I think some YouTubers have tried that and like, you know, said that it's probably still playable, but it definitely would knock the decks down significantly. The worry with a troll ban is it's like the Monty Python meme where like you're knocking his like hand off, his like legs off. Night. Like we've already banned Grief, Frog, Troll. Like, what if this deck is still good? There's a chance.
I gotta make that meme and post it somewhere. I love that.
Yeah, there's a chance that like that Reanimator is still a tier 1 deck because, you know, maybe you splash a color, you play Oliphant or something, or maybe you go down like you play more fatties, you play Show and Tell and Faithless Looting.
Stronghold Gambit, here we go.
So yeah, I think there's other ways that you could maybe build the deck, and I think Entomb fundamentally is like a really, really powerful card, and it wouldn't be totally surprising to me if we had to ban Entomb because of power level, you know, later down the line.
Mm-hmm, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, but what are the good alternatives, right? Like the Oliphant, or like a Street Rave, but like those cards are so underwhelming in comparison to Troll, right? Like
I remember when like against Shuttlesbug, people used to like psych a Street Wraith and reanimate it, and Shuttlesbug was like, I can never kill this card.
Yeah, dude. Like you gotta need a couple of Lilianas, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck.
But yeah, so, but I think like so Dimir Reanimator and Dimir Tempo, like both decks have been fairly popular. And I think the players who picked Dimir Tempo instead of Reanimator were probably like the Delver players, right? Like players who'd rather have like, I don't know, like tempo-ish, like Delver style gameplay instead of like combo-ish games. Mm-hmm. But I think like, Dimir Tempo is like now I think is I would say like clearly above Dimir Reanimator. Because like the creatures are very powerful these days, and the shell is like it's the same, you know, and
so going forward, like what is going to be our tempo deck that we compare the format against? Like who's the police force in the format right now?
I think there are a couple of good choices, right? Like the Dimir tempo deck, Rock Delver is also pretty popular, like classic Delver style.
But popular doesn't mean like controlling the format.
No, it's definitely not, because there's just so much going on in Legacy. Like if you're playing a blue deck, you have to control things like Oops All Spells, but also Omnitel, but also like Eldrazi and Painter and like Nadu
Breakfast. That's what I mean. Like which kind of tempo deck right now does it all? Because I feel like throughout Legacy, if there's one thing being true, there's always like a top tier tempo, well, usually at some point Delver deck, previously Canadian Threshold, whatever. Like, and right now it's like really not that clear to me, because every time we talked about like straight up blue-black tempo without the reanimator aspect, we were like, the deck is okay, but like not controlling everything else in the format.
I think blue-black tempo, it's called blue-black tempo because it plays 4 dazes, but it's actually secretly a mid-range deck now.
Yeah.
It's, you know, a lot of Delver players playing it. Some control players are playing it too, because it's the closest thing we have to control in the format. And I do think it's probably the best, you know, fair blue deck right now. I think it's a step above Rug Delver, but I also think that, you know, I actually think it's a healthy thing if there's multiple viable tempo decks, and I think those two are viable tempo decks. I know Stifle Knot has also made a little bit of a showing recently, and I think that deck also has potential of being a good, you know, pseudo, I guess, aggro combo deck as well. But I think those are the 3 that come to mind for me.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. I think it's a good thing, right? If there's no clear winner for now. I think like. And there was also like this hype about, is it Delver, you know, with stock up, like people
love like, stock up, right?
Like people, yeah, dude, I love the card. I just don't like it in Delver.
That's what I initially thought. I thought it would be too slow, but then when I played it in blue black tempo, I thought it was actually quite strong. And I was playing 3. It's just the card. It's just such a broken card, because it's not broken, but it's such a strong card because it just gives you that feeling of casting Dig Through Time. Yes, you have to work for it a little bit compared to Dig Through Time. I think it's actually very comparable. Like, it's not as powerful, but in terms of like casting it, I would say it's slightly easier to hit 3 mana than to, you know, hit Delve 6. but dig through time is an instant, which makes a big difference. So it's probably like very close, I say to dig through time, and obviously we know how good that card is, and I really think stock up is like legit, and it should be played in like most blue decks that can like fit it in. Like I was playing Sneak and Show, it's insane in that deck. It's good in mono blue painter. I actually think like people are starting to catch on, especially online, but I think that's like the next format staple is stock up.
Yeah, I think I saw you playing stock up in a couple of like, what was it, like 11-0 or something with Sneak Show?
Yeah, oh man, dude, like yeah, like yeah, I just threw together like this blue green like Simic Omnitel deck, and dude, oh man, this deck just crushed leaks like left and right.
The thing is, like, if stock up is actually good enough to be played in the kind of decks that Bob mentioned, like these Delver mid-range something decks, like that, then it becomes like a format all-star. Then it's like not only in like an Ancient Tomb deck, but like in a proper like dual and basic land deck.
Yeah, the reason it's good in those decks like Blue-Black Tempo is because you're playing Force of Will, so like in a pinch you can always pitch it if it's too slow. And sometimes in these like matchups you're just trading cards, and then you hit the mid game, then you play stock up, and then you're just immediately ahead. And stock up, you can find another stock up. And so like even if you only play like
I hate that
3,
so much when you see that.
Also Blue-Black Tempo, you can also play Mystic Sanctuary, so you can just chain your stock ups. So it just like for a very low deck building cost, you add this inevitability engine, which is why it kind of feels like the control deck of the format.
Yeah, like this really has like Painful Truth vibes, I think, Yeah,
it's like Painful Truths, but if it was actually good.
Yeah, because didn't you also play like a lot of like Painful Truth in Delver sideboards? Because like that's like that's the scariest thing.
Yeah, it was a thing for like mirrors as well as against control decks way back in the day. It might have been against Miracles or Check Pile.
Yeah. And like I see this like so often, right? Like a new card comes out from a new set, and what Legacy players are very good at is like they kind of take like engines or like deck concepts from like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and then they kind of copy paste that new card into this shell skeleton of deck, and it usually works out. Because like even back then, when I saw Painful Truth in Delver sideboard, I was like, dude, how can you cast a 3-mana sorcery if you are a Daze deck and you have both cards in your opening hand? Like, isn't that like really terrible? But I don't know. Like it worked out, and like now you don't have to prove anyone that stock up doesn't work out.
I also saw it in a lot of like HJ Kaiser and Thomas.
Yeah, dude. That was the shit, dude.
Deck pile decks and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So Stockpile kind of strikes me as a similar card, and it's certainly, as Bob mentioned, like if it goes stock up into stock up, and you're not sitting on a tempo advantage, you feel like you can never win the game. It's just if only the artwork was a little bit better. I don't know, man. It's just like. Anyway, so yeah, not quite clear which tempo deck is gonna dominate, but yeah, there's a couple of good options. Blue-Black Tempo maybe being the most likely, but yeah, it's probably too early to really tell. But what about the second card that got banned? Sawing Microspawn. I think I've never seen a card that was so okay, it's Legacy, but still, I wanted to say like so universally hated since Running Top, Astrolabe, what have you. But I mean, is there anybody out there, except for like the people playing the card, who really felt like, hey, this is a cool card to have around in the format? I'm really not so sure.
Maybe the Cloud Post players, because their deck was somewhat playable.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes there are cards that I don't play that I feel like they're still pretty cool to have around to make for good gameplay. But Sawing Microspawn, come on. Like, I
mean, this dude was like the reason for people to play more than like one copy of Consigned to Memory, right? In the sideboards. And like now that there's no Sowing Microspawn, I'm just curious like how many Consigned to Memories we're gonna see in sideboards. Like we will probably see still like a couple of copies, but maybe people go down from 3 to 2, for example. That's very possible. And control decks don't have to worry about
not so fast. I mean, we banned this card so midrange and control can come back. That doesn't mean that they will actually come back. I mean, yes, Sawing Microspawn is like really good against them, but I think control in general always has these like issues in the format, and I guess it helps that one of the other decks that can close out the game really quickly has been somewhat hampered. But
yeah, no, I think you got a really good point there. I think like if you are playing a control deck, like you have to cover all these like different tier 1, tier 2 decks, especially tier 1's deck, and they're so different. It's just so hard for control decks. Like
Yeah.
you gotta need a sideboard of 30 cards, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if control is making a comeback. Like you mentioned some reasons why it's, hard to make a good control deck right now. There's so many different combo decks. I think another maybe even bigger reason is control really likes to prey on the tempo decks, and the tempo decks are only okay right now. So maybe that's another big reason. Just tempo decks are not being played as much and aren't at the winners tables as much.
Mm-hmm. Which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because tempo decks used to be the best archetype for, I don't know, how many
basically
years,
since the beginning of the format, with a couple of exceptions, I want to say.
Yeah, but like,
well, most recently, like it's been Tempo Reanimator has been like the best deck for quite some time, so it's still in a tempo deck, just not the Delver deck, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess that comes back to like the idea of like condensing the matches, because even in the past, like for many years of Legacy, or I guess in many Magic formats ever, there has been the situation where I don't want to call it garbage time, but basically where you as a tempo deck, you felt quite ahead, but then it still took you like 3, 4, maybe even 5 turns to close it out because the opponent just couldn't get back into the game. And what like Blue-Black Reanimator did is like it basically condensed it down to like 1 or 2 turns. Like you caught your opponent off guard, and then the game ended like really, really quickly with like an unsurmountable board state. Whereas previously there was more play to it, and then I want to say like a couple of people who were like not as cutthroat or something like that into the format, they were like, okay, at least I felt like I had a chance, but they didn't really. And maybe we're gonna go back to that, where people play like worse decks, but they get their magic out of it, so they're gonna be satisfied. And I mean, that's a very elitist way of thinking about it, because right now I'm not as tuned into the format as I used to be, so I might even end up as one of those guys who just like thinks he's got a chance, but then he doesn't. But I feel like that's the natural state for a lot of Eternal formats. And during the times where the games get like really condensed, as Wizards calls it, it becomes very apparent that that is the case, and people don't like that. So maybe we go back to playing a little bit more of Magic, while still like the same people losing a lot of games, but now it at least feels like they had a chance. And I guess they do, even though it's small. So who knows?
Yeah. I mean, it alludes to what you were saying earlier, is it always feels like we're like in a lame duck session where they might need to ban more cards. I definitely have my eye on a few cards. Like, for instance, the One Ring I think is still really strong. Nadu is good, but sometimes it's more for like gameplay reasons that I want that card banned, because you can't really track it very easily. Like, especially on like Magic Online, there's no way to track it. And then in real life, it's like really awkward to track as well, like which ones you've activated and which ones you haven't. And so just like from a functionality perspective, the card is like just a total mess. And then the last card I think was that I saw other people discussing was something from Oops All Spells, and probably Undercity Informer, if there had to be a card banned. Oops is in that interesting space where it's like, let's just think of this hypothetical deck where you showed up every day, every match, and you just flipped a coin, and if you won the flip, you won the match. Like, this deck is obviously, objectively, it's not overpowered. It's a 50-50 deck, but it would still be a miserable gameplay experience. And that's kind of where Oops All Spells has fallen. It's gotten so much better that it's still roughly a 50-50 deck, but it's kind of miserable to play against.
Yeah, I guess it's also what Wizards was saying, right? They mentioned that despite only banning 2 cards, they got their eye on a couple of decks. And 2 of them being Blood Moon Stompy and Oops All Spells. And yeah, you already mentioned, right, why nobody really feels like, does this like add anything to the format? Do we really need another like way better version of Belcher to have around that people actually will face regularly? Like, I mean, part of the whole Belcher thing is that how often did you really play against Belcher throughout the course of a year? Really not all that much that would like influence your deck building decision in any way, really.
There's also a big difference between online and in paper. I have seen people play Oops All Spells in paper, but it's way more rare. Whereas if you play a Moto League, like, chances are you're going to face Oops All Spells just because of the, like, I guess, real-time aspect, because you get to just play as many, games as you like with Oops All Spells and grind leagues that way. Whereas for a real tournament, you only get to play one match every 60 minutes. So do you really want to sit on your hands for 45 minutes?
Dude, I still remember when you could like multi-table on Magic Online, when you would play like 2, 3, 4 matches at the same time. Like Oops, Spells would be perfect for that.
Yeah.
Wait, can you not do that anymore?
I guess you can open another instance of Magic Online. And
the problem with Magic Online is it's so laggy. That's one other reason I've been playing a lot less. It's just I just really despise the lag.
Yeah,
like there's another guy who's got like so many decks saved that Wizards will contact that person and be like, hey, if we need you to delete some of your draft decks because it's slowing down Magic Online as a whole. Still love that story.
But like almost like every time like you cast Balustrade Spy or like even cast a Doomsayer, like every time I'm like, dude, like I'm praying like please do not crush, you know. Like yeah. Because like for like there's like this 1 or 2 second window where the program could technically crash, maybe. And because like milling 60 cards in one row is just like a little bit too difficult.
Yeah, for the like these are the minimum system requirements, but if you want to play Oops All Spells, you need like 16 gigabytes of RAM more or something.
Yeah.
That's how it
One
works.
thing about Oops, though, I think like if you really want to beat this deck, I think you have to change your graveyard hate. Like people are still so used to like Fairy Macabres and Surgicals and stuff. I think I think like a card that's insane versus Oops All Spells is Doughty Voidwalker. Because
2 mana spell.
It's a 2 mana spell, right? Maybe you need Lotus Petals or Gemstone Caverns. I don't know. Dark Ritual? Do you tell me? But like, it's creature removal is so uncommon in Oops All Spells decks, and it's permanent, and they can't do the Jack-o'-lantern memory journey nonsense, right? Because like that's really like how they get you.
So basically, what that tells me is you want something to bridge the gap to get to turn 2 and then drop that thing.
Yeah.
Because if you only rely on that kind of stuff, like I guess you could have like discard or something. I don't know.
Sure, but like also forcing a Dark Ritual or even like I don't know, like a Cruel Marks isn't like necessarily bad if your follow-up second turn is a Doughty Voidwalker.
Yeah, you have to fight tooth and nail. Like if you got that and I guess Force of Will in hand and you know you can drop it on the second turn, you will probably like fight as hard as you can to get there.
Mm-hmm. But I can also
that's what I'm saying, right? You need something else. Like if you're just like a mono black mid-range whatever deck, then at the very least you need like discard or something. Like this is not gonna be your game plan against Oops.
Right. Yeah, but like again, like the deck got very resilient, and I can see the frustration, right? Like if like because no one, I think. I've never met a player who's like excited to play against Oops All Spells. Or like I don't even know how the mirror goes. I think that the mirror match is probably like a huge mess. But
well, I guess you can't really use your Pact of Negations, can you? No, not, I guess for protection, but not to stop the other person.
Yeah, I think there's like literally nothing you can do about the mirror.
Gotta start sideboarding some Angel's Graces.
Dude!
I guess you could try to like, I don't know, for Force of Vigor, their Chrome Mox or something. It's just like, yeah. I guess it's terrible. So yeah, guys, going forward, what are you going to play in this whole new legacy? Is it going to be as... I guess it's going to be more exciting as most post-ban formats are. I also feel like we undershot the expectations that a lot of people, me included, have for the format. I agree that if it was up to me, I would love to see more cards banned. I understand why they don't, but at least they... How long has it been since they... I guess they ban 2 cards quite often in Legacy these days, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's part of the frustration. There have been consistent bans since like 2020. There have been like, multiple bans every single year, and it's just getting like really tiring.
It's part of the appeal of why people go into stuff like pre-modern, but that's a whole different discussion, I guess. Bob, have you played pre-modern?
I have not, and I think it's just because my time is limited. And the other thing is like conceptually, the format just doesn't appeal to me because it's a static format. I understand they do ban cards and unban cards from time to time, but it feels like eventually, if enough people played it, the format would get stale. That being said, like everybody who plays it seems to love it. So, maybe I'm in the wrong here.
Yeah, I certainly haven't played enough of it to actually have a proper opinion of it, but I've watched a lot of it, and that's exciting to me. And especially, like, I will never forget that match that we had between Andrea Mengucci and Callum at Impact Returns last year, where Callum explained the matchup to me, and I was like, dude, this is like strategically on such a high level that like we don't really get to in Legacy these days because it's much more tactical and over so quickly. But like he was thinking 10, 15, 20 turns ahead, and I was just like, whoa. I mean, that's one matchup. And I guess if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again strategically, it loses a lot of its, fascination. But at least for the time being, that really caught my attention and made me feel like, whoa, this format has like a lot to explore for me strategically. But yeah, I can certainly see it wearing off, but it's probably going to be a long time since it wears until it wears off. So.
Yeah, like I'm very excited to keep the Omnitel deck going. I think one thing maybe that might change is like I don't know how good Veil of Summer is gonna be like moving forward, because like maybe like Underground Sea, the Underground Sea decks might go down a little bit maybe, but maybe not. That's like something I'm really curious about. Another deck I want to tune also is like Doomsday. I haven't played Doomsday in like in a month or two, I think, because I was just so excited about Stock Up. But I want to tune that deck too.
What about Stock Up on the sideboard of Doomsday again? Well, I was going to say against control
dude,
decks.
That was like exactly my thought when the card came out. I was like, is there like any way how I can fit this like 2 generic 1 blue sorcery into this black sorcery deck? Maybe I need mana morphos. I don't know. Like
you can like, just like play 1 blue mana, dude.
Yeah, like the mana is so rough on this, but yeah, maybe, I don't know. I mean, like we made Uro work in Doomsday, so maybe
you tried making it work, I wanna say.
Dude, like it was so sick. Like you get
was
to
that
attack.
Martin Nielsen who tried to make it work?
Yeah, like but Martin Nielsen and we share the same brain, so we're technically the same person.
Yeah, but Martin is always like much more extreme about it. Like he hates certain decks or archetypes, and then he goes as hard as possible to beat them.
Yeah, that's Martin.
Yeah, I never want to be on the receiving end of something like that. When I actually play the deck and I face him, he's going to be like, okay, I got pre-board 12 cards for you, and post-board there's going to be like 10 more or something. I don't know.
But also like Bob, like you got me kind of excited about Delver with Stock Up, because I had like mixed feelings about this like in Delver, but if you tell me that it's actively not a bad thing to do, then.
So how many copies are you feeling in Delver? Like 2?
So in Blue Black Tempo, I think 3 felt right. And then in Stifle Knot, a friend played 2 and they said that was good. In regular Delver, I'm not actually sure.
I mean, Blue Black Delver kind of is regular Delver.
Because like,
to me.
yeah, Teamer, they have like Seek the Beast, so it fills a similar role. So I'm not totally sure, but I would definitely test Stock Up in that deck as well.
Cool. Yeah, and for me, well, I guess I'm sticking to Painter. I'm gonna try to see what we can make work. Also gonna have Callum. Hello. It's me, the guy who copies all your deck lists. Looking forward to the next one.
I mean, these bannings didn't really have an impact on Painter, right? Like, not much.
Well, if anything, it makes Goblin Engineer slightly better, but I also saw a lot of lists that don't even play Goblin Engineer anymore because people were like, yeah, too graveyardy, let's just like do more with our actual mana, like become more like, I want to say Moonstompy decks where people played like Pyrogolf and that kind of stuff. So I'm just excited. Like I'm not at this point anymore where I feel like I have to figure it out because I want to grind this thing and I want to win this tournament. It's just a lot more relaxed, just hanging out with you guys, and that's nice. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, part of me thinks legacy players tend to skew on the older side, and like just because of how expensive it is as the general legacy population continues to grow old, has kids, all that kind of thing. Like maybe that'll be a major effect as well.
Yeah. And just loving the idea of just like settling down and trying Legacy as kind of like a board game every once in a while. But Wizards sometimes has other plans, and we're certainly looking forward to see what they can print this year. I don't know if they're actually dialing it back, probably not. But at least it feels like they're kind of aware of the damage they're doing to a lot of
Yeah, they're definitely aware of it, and they've mentioned that they're even reconsidering like Modern Horizons 4, like if it will happen or not because of the adverse effects they've seen. So I think it's good that they're aware. They've also obviously mentioned Universe Beyond is only going to be standard only. So hopefully the next, Final Fantasy set sells well, and they're like, okay, we don't actually need to make it like, super juiced up power level wise, as long as like the casual players like it.
Yeah, I need my, I don't know, Cloud Strife hero card or whatever they're gonna print. Spend so much time in Final Fantasy VII. Anyway, before we close it out, I want to very quickly touch on Vintage as well, because that's also kind of like an eternal format. It is an eternal format. And everybody's favorite companion, Lurrus. And they mentioned that they're actually looking into banning Lurrus. It's just like, they have these golden rules, right? In Vintage, you really only get banned for like, dexterity or being stupid stickers or whatever. And they were like, no, this rule already has like a lot of exceptions, and we're not going to uphold that rule for whatever reason. If there's like a gameplay reason to actually ban Lurrus, then we are willing to ban companion cards. Like being part of the companion mechanic does not exclude you from being banned in Vintage. And they said right now, it doesn't look like we will ban Lurrus, but there's a chance. Right now the numbers are not there, and I just wanted to throw it out there. If you're casually following Vintage on the side, kind of like I am, it's kind of cool to know that they made a statement like that, right? So at least people on Reddit don't have to discuss about like the purity of the format. Do we ban companions? Do we not ban companions? We do. They straight up said it, and that's how it's gonna work. So
yeah, I think it was a really smart announcement, because even though they didn't do anything, they just put it out there like, hey, we might ban this. And I think now they're going to see the crowd reaction to that. Like, people are going to be like, yes, let's do it. Or like, no, that's a bad idea. Because I think Legacy and Vintage are in a similar spot where they're community driven formats. They should honestly be managed how, if like 80% of people agree on something, like, hey, let's just do it and make sure people are having fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Loving that. So is there anything else, Bob, you want to shout out? Is there anybody who you want to shout out on this episode?
Anybody I want to shout out? Do you guys still do that segment? I forget. I thought it used to be a segment. Or maybe no. I'm thinking of Leaving the Legacy, where they did like scoops and poops.
I think they. Oh, dude, how long has it been since Levy? Do you know what Cherry and Patrick are up to these days?
No, I haven't talked to them in a while. I saw them at the last Leaving a Legacy Open, and they were doing well. But yeah, they've like, I think Jerry has started like a different podcast on something like, I'm blanking on what the topic is, but it's totally not Magic related. It's like Star Wars or something. Okay. I don't know.
What do you say, Star Wars?
I can't remember.
Star Wars card game, or like Star Wars as like the movies? Like, this is like how rumors start.
Yeah, I'm just making stuff up now. So let's talk. But yeah, in terms of people to shout out, yeah, I alluded to this earlier, but I guess shout out to my wife, who is having a kid. So I want to be a dad soon. So shout out to her.
We have to be excited again, because you already told us before the podcast. No, seriously, but we're still excited, dude. That's so cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, really excited for the next chapter in my life. Means I probably can't play as much, but I'm still going to try to make it out for like Eternal Weekend once a year or something like that, just to see friends and hang out with people. That's always the best part.
Awesome. So Kai, you got your work cut out for you, like, right?
Absolutely.
Don't ask me what I'm up to, because I have no idea right now. Anyway, so thank you, Bob, for coming on the show. Really short notice, sharing your insight as usual. I'm also really happy to hear that your stat sheet is still going strong. So I'm looking forward to see it in the Louvre in like, I don't know, 10, 20 years from now, when they're going to have that dedicated Magic section. And with that, everybody, if you want to support the running of Everyday Eternal, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or whatever is out there. Or, of course, you can also join our Patreon on patreon.com/everydayeternal. Thank you so much, and see you next month. Kai, I think we got this whole thing planned about the worst decks in the history of the format, right?
Oh, shit, like, yeah. I thought we were going to keep it a secret now.
No, I mean, we already talked about that in the last episode.
Oh shit! Okay, like now people know. Yeah, but next episode we're gonna bring you the worst of the worst decks of Legacy history.
Yeah, dude, only some of them are gonna be built by Kaiser Vatari.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I already have one on my deck list. Oh, dude, it's so bad. Oh man, I want to talk about like right now, but I guess I have to wait like for. Like,
this is how you get the audience excited, right?
Yeah.
Podcasting 101. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Kai. See you next month. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.